Winter is coming, my Immortal nerds. The best class in Diablo Immortal turned into an ice-cold sculpture, creating freezing havoc in PvE and PvP. There are many new essences for our Barbarian, a new set and a new Paragon tree. But is it worth our time farming like crazy to get all of this stuff? Hopefully today's video will give you that answers. We will have a look at the essences, we will test the set and validate 3 builds for the PvE content and battleground. It was a lot of work collecting all of this info, so it took me a while to bring all of this stuff to you. So I can imagine how many questions you have about this new stuff. So let's just get rid of them all. 5 million DPS build and CC damage monster, we are coming. So what we will do today is starting with an overall insight into the essences and sets, including the small tricks like stacking attack speed, beneficial effect duration, boss damage and loss of control functions. Going over to the max damage PvE build with all of the infos including gems, curses, paragon and so on, and heading straight forward into our PvP build landscape to see where we stand with this new stuff. I brought you 2 possible builds that I like best to give you an idea how to utilize the combos. Harbinger, reforging settings, interesting stuff. Okay, a lot of things to cover, so let's start. First of all, for all of you who are just looking for a quick, honest answer for is it worth your time? This whole icy barb builds are very good, but will not necessarily replace the current meta. So you can stick to your Shackled Fate Turtle and Heartless Terror builds. But it is definitely fun and strong, and for many of you it might suit your playstyle better than the current builds. High resonance damage PvP and safe low resonance PvE end content is both within this set. Good, so let's meet our best friend, the Puppet. Okay. We start with the first skill with the sprint, and for the new essence, the helmet essence and the pants essence. Both really cool and give a full new flair to our Barbarian. We actually can skip now Wrath of the Berserker. Okay, Sleet Sprint gives you the chance to deal a chill effect, and the helmet now, and this is crazy, gives you an attack speed increase of 28.5% and a projectile attack speed of 40%. So this is pretty crazy. Let me show it to you in detail. We just hit regularly, in this case with the lacerate because it's not stacking, it's showing pretty good how fast you are. And then with the sprint you see we get a good boost of attack speed. We can push this even further. So when you think about the old Shackled Fate builds, Shackled Fate is a projectile. That's why in the past Austlark helmet worked pretty good with the Firestorm, and in this case this is nice as well. So see the regular speed, it's solid. In the end it's enough for pulling the enemy, but if you use it as a damage skill, it's pretty cool now with this essence because it gets pushed by 40%. Okay, but there is more to it, because now we have a nice attack speed increase. We can now push in the Vithus as well, because the Shackled Fate, the chains, is a beneficial effect, so it directly gives us an increase of attack speed, and then together with the sprint, we get pretty fast. Check this out, it's spamming like crazy. And of course, this works for our primary attack as well. We have the regular attack, now we have the Vithus, you see it's proccing, we activate it again. Regular, now with Vithus, you see it's faster, and now with the sprint and all of this we get really fast. And this is with the lacerate, so heavy hits that you can deal with that one. So overall, if you like sprint builds, this is crazily good. Next, we take the Cleave now. The new essence gives you a 2 whirling axes that deal nearly 50k damage. And the point is, everything that is chilled gets frozen when it's hit by your axes. That's pretty nice. In addition, you have the Shoulder Essence that just increases the damage to slowed and chilled enemies. Chilled and frozen enemies, that way around. In the end, the shoulder is nice. It's a good damage increase for you, but it's just increasing the damage of your cleave. So it's not that perfect. There are other essences working better for the cleave. But you see, we have those axes. They're working good. Now those axes are projectiles as well, which is pretty nice. So if you activate the speed, those axes will whirl faster and will hit the enemies more often. The sprint deals chill, and the axes then convert that chill into a freeze. So you have a CC. That's the base combo that you have for this new essences. Chill with the sprint, and with the cleave, freeze the enemies. Enemies can just be frozen for 3 seconds. Okay, and then the last thing, the hammer essences. We start with the chest and the offhand, and both are working pretty good in combination, because you see you have your hammer halo. That means you have that big hammer whirling around you, dealing nearly 30k damage. Again, like the cleave, just active for 5 seconds. And you have the chest that's now finishing the idea of this essence combination. Chill with sprint, freeze with a cleave, and then shatter the frozen enemy with a hammer, dealing an additional blow of damage. So those 3 work pretty good with each other. There's a negative thing about those 2 essences for the cleave and the hammer. They are no beneficial effect. So it means they are just sticking for that 5 seconds, and that's it. But we have our old clatter steel. The clatter steel that's dealing that AoE hammer is a beneficial effect. So together with the chest, you still have that shatter effect for the frozen one, and you have a lot of hits from that hammer. So it's pretty cool. And the nice thing is, it's a beneficial effect, and it is an attack animation, and it takes benefit from the sprint. So when you use the clatter steel with the sprint, you will have a lot of attacks just from the sky, and you will still have the effect of shattering your enemies. So it's, I think, the better option for the hammer. Those essences work, of course, pretty good with the new set. The new set, it's the Prayer for Endwinter. It's a nice thing where you get 50% additional damage to chilled and 30% damage to frozen enemies. And on the 4-piece, you can now freeze chilled enemies just with this set. You don't, in the end, need the cleave, but you just have it available for every 10 seconds. And then on the 6-piece, you can shatter chilled and frozen enemies in that 12-second duration that is available every 40 seconds. Each enemy can just be shattered every 0.5 seconds. Okay, so think about it. It's you chill the enemy, you can shatter it with the set, then you can freeze the enemy, you can shatter it with the set and with the hammer, then you chill again because the sprint is all of the time doing that, and you can just go crazy and use that icicle thing to burst out damage like crazy. This is the main idea behind it, that you have all the skills to permanently chill, freeze and shatter the enemy. You see it by the animation that this ice is flowing. This is a cleave, and by the ground animation, the blue circle that is created, this is the Endwinter animation that shows that it gets shattered. So a lot of additional, each 25k hits, hitting that enemy like 3 times a second most of the time. So it's pretty good. And why do they have this 30% additional attack damage? Because when the enemy is frozen, you will shatter him, which means he's not frozen anymore. So that 30% will just be available for a very short time. The idea is to have a big burst of damage while shattering, so that 20k damage, 25k damage that gets bursted and gets that 30% additional damage. Good thing about this set, it is indeed a beneficial effect. So we get it prolonged. We nearly have an uptime of 20 seconds if we do everything right. If you have the reforges, the skill cooldowns and so on, you can have it half of the 40 seconds you can have it active. So it's not just 12 seconds, it's a lot more, which makes it valid in my opinion. In PvE, that burst gets transported really, really good. Like have it in that scene where you just run in, we face those two enemies and we just burst them away with a good crit damage. And this is why the set and this combination and this build is strong, because it really can deliver a lot of damage with just chilling, shattering, shilling, chattering, and two follow-up stuns. So when we combine all of these essences and look for the best combination, we can get into a max damage build that, yeah, really is worth taking a look at, because it's as good as the frenzy build and as good as many other things. So look, we peak directly into 5 million, 6 million shortly, then falling to a solid 4 million in the first 10 seconds. And then slowly decreasing and finding our level at 3 million DPS. Of course, this is a max damage possibility. Not everyone will reach there instantly, but you can get with the right gems and the right setup, you have the chance to get to that level. So I think it's a good thing. And of course, it now brings you more CC than the old build and more security to just survive. I like this really much, and I will show you now the details of how this build looks and the different essences you need and the gems and everything. So let's take a look at the details. We start with the skills. Of course, it's a frenzy build. Frenzy is still delivering the best primary damage output in here. We're going with a sprint to utilize all of that attack speed boost, projectile boost and everything. We have the cleave, because sprint is chilling, cleave is freezing. We want that. It's a good solid damage. It's a projectile that we can use. The hammer then for shattering and everything. And we take the sunder because we want to have a build that works in dungeons, in terror rifts, in every hard PvE content to get the bosses down quickly. First essences is the Squirmskull. It is our hat for the additional attack speed and gives you, when awakened, a 10% cooldown, which is pretty important. Overall, the cooldown of that sprint thing with those two essences and the Neo rank 5 awakenings is pretty good. You have a 100% uptime, even in battleground where it gets drived. Still 100% works pretty good. Pants the Snowdrifter to apply this chill. This is, of course, important because no other skill from us is giving a chill. And we don't want to go with any crazy whirlwind stuff because the damage output is still, sadly, not good enough. We go over to the main hand. We take the Frigid Grin. This is the Cleave Essence for our axes that whirls around us and make chilled enemies into frozen ones. It's good because it's a good amount of damage. Solid damage 50k, and awakened again 10% damage in addition. We combine it now with the Skull mod. So we do not go with the new shoulder essence that just boosts our cleave. We take the Skull mod that boosts the whole damage that we produce, because the Skull mod was buffed. It just had 20% in the past, now it has a 35% damage. Still, it's now stacking, so 3 times. You need to hit 3 times, but with those axes that whirl pretty fast with the helmet, those 3 hits are there immediately. So this essence is really absolutely S tier now. It is very cool. And it instead of having the pants before for the Shackled Fate that give us a 20% damage boost. Now we have a 35, so we can compensate the missing Shackled Fate boost. Next one. For the chest, Cold Temper. This one really was crazy to farm it. It took me like 4 days or something. I farmed nearly 600 or 700 essences. It was totally crazy. And then I did one run in the endless mode, and I just had it. I was so happy. Okay, whatever. Hammer of the Ancients shatters frozen enemies. This is the key part. Shattering a frozen enemy every 3 seconds with our cleave means every 3 seconds a 22,000 hit. This is nice because we have it immediately. When we engage the first enemy, we directly freeze that one and shatter that one. It's instantly there. It's a burst damage. And then if he is not going down, we have the set again, that is freezing again, and we shatter again. And then after 3 seconds we have the next instance. So in 3 seconds you can shatter the enemy 3 times. So you have 3 times this crazy hit. Next, Clatter Steel. We do not go with the new Hammer Essence because it's too slow and the uptime is not good. It's not a beneficial effect. 2 seconds missing or 3 seconds missing. We go with the Clatter Steel. Here we have 100% uptime, good solid damage, and we still have the effect of shattering the enemies. And of course, it has an improved attack animation. So we have, instead of 11 hits in the runtime, we have 14 hits, which is really, really cool. Lastly, we go to our frenzy stuff. We have the Lunatic Twin, not the Riddleroo, which might create a question mark on your head, because the Lunatic Twin has an additional damage. While we have nearly 50% attack speed already with the new helmet and all of the stuff, our basic attack speed and our reforges. So having the Riddleroo is bringing no benefit at all. That is the point. It's crazy, but Riddleroo is at this point on the sprint builds not needed anymore. Lunatic Twin is your thing because you have an additional damage that is a projectile. Not helping us very much, but additional damage is always good. On the offhand, we take the Oncoming Brutality. Here we have again our 30% increased frenzy damage that is building up as well, which is heavily good for beating down bosses in any way, or any rats or whatever you're facing that just needs more than 1 hit. Now, gems are pretty interesting. We have the chip of the Stone Flesh in here, because freezing an enemy is a total loss of control. And I have a little video here to prove it to you. Let's just switch over there, because having that chip is a nice benefit for this build, especially for PvP, but for PvE as well. So let's go up there. Here we go. So all of them are frozen now. And when you see, when they get out of that freeze, they get an additional damage hit. It was that 71k. This was our flash that did a hit. Okay, in addition to the flash, we take the Gloom Cask. This one is important. It is a main damage source for heavy attack speed primary hitting builds for PvE and PvP. So even if you don't have it, try to get it with the pearls, try to buy one, you don't care for the stars, you can use it as an auxiliary gem, it works just fine. Okay, take this gem into your consideration, because it is for this PvE build a heavy damage dealer. Then, what else? We don't have any damage dot effects on the enemies anymore. The cleave is now freezing, it has no bleed anymore, and our hammer is not dealing any bleed. None of our skills are dealing any continual damage effect. So we need one to utilize our damage gems like Pain Clasp, because it's important. It brings movement speed, it brings a good damage boost. We want it, and we want to beat down enemies very fast. So Vipers for PvE is still S tier gem. Pick a Vipers, use then the Pain Clasp to get the full potential for all PvE content out of it. And lastly, the sets. Of course, we pick a 6-piece prayer for Endwinter. This one is utilizing everything that we do. It gives us additional damage, it deals additional damage, it freezes our enemies. So whenever you are just a low resonance and you might face too many enemies in a terror rift and you die sometimes, you don't need to equip any undying rage or stuff like this. The Endwinter and the freezing of enemies will save your life. Everyone around you will not be able to attack you. And in addition, our hammer is dealing a small knockback to all of the enemies. It's not working in PvP, but in PvE, everyone will knock back regularly with every fast-hitting hit and will be then frozen so they cannot attack you anymore. They take the full loss of control damage that you maybe have stacked on your equipment. And we need the 2-piece Vithus Urge, of course, because that 30% duration is important for our hammer, for our sprint, for everything, to just be always up with our skills. For curses, I still like the Detested very, very much. Detested, it's funny because it says whenever you deal a loss of control to an enemy, you create that big field under you where enemies get 24% damage per second, and in addition you deal 12% more damage to them overall, so every damage that they receive is increased by 12%. This is heavy, still very heavy, so look into that. The point is one thing. The set claims that those loss of control, freezes and chills work on bosses as well. So of course I tested it and I did it just with a raid boss to get an idea if our Detested gets procced due to the Endwinter token that the enemy is taken. He's not really chilled, he's not really slowed in any way, but he takes the additional damage. But as you can see, our proc of Detested is not happening. So even if the boss gets marked, it's not a loss of control to bosses. But we don't care. This set, or this curse, is still very, very good, because for every other content, for the terror rifts where you have masses of enemies, and for regular raid bosses that have minions, or any other bosses on the terror rift pillars, or on any bounties you can do, you always have some mobs around you. This thing will improve your kill rate extremely. And lastly, what Paragon tree do we use? We go with the Slinger. I still like the Slinger very good because it's an all-round build, and this Slinger just deals the most damage that could be possibly that could be possible. So for everything where you go into raid bosses, you can use this build for raid bosses easily, or where you have to face smaller bosses in dungeons or anything. This Slinger will help you killing those faster. It's still the best build. If you go more into open world stuff, then you might go with the Vanquisher or whatever to get more orbs, to get more experience or whatever. But we are focused on damage, and for that this Paragon is the best. So altogether, check out this skill and build overview. To all of you who just want to rebuild it, the screenshot should tell you everything that is necessary. Skills, Frenzy, Sprint, Cleave, Hammer and Sunder. The essences, mostly the new ones, just some replaced. The Skull mod for shoulder and the Clatter Steel for the hammer to have a better performance. 6-piece Endwinter, 2-piece Vithus with the regular gems, Lament, Painclasp, Viper, Chip and the Gloomcast. And one thing that is important here, look into the Eternal Cleave attribute. So when you have it, use it, because in every hit from your primary you get a 0.1 second cooldown reduction. That means we can fix 2 cooldown issues here. With the hammer, we just do not take the new hammer essence, we take the Clatter Steel, and we are at 100% uptime. And for the axes, for the Cleave Essences, we take this Eternal Affix. That then gives us 100% uptime. So that's pretty nice. If you have it, use it, and it's worth farming. This build overall makes you a very valid and very a good role in any dungeon you're running with other people, because you are now providing 65% damage boost for them. With the Skull mod and with the Thunder together, it's crazy. You boost their damage like hell. You're still fast and you deal a lot of damage by yourself, and that's the big thing. Having more utility within the build while keeping the same damage that you had with the old meta of the Whirlwind or the Frenzy Firestorm builds. The Firestorm build is still very, very cool. So check out this other video here. I will link it to you. It's still a very valid choice. It's even focusing even more on primary, and just have that knockback effects, but it's lacking some loss of control. So this build here, giving that loss of control and boosting your damage with the Reforges, which we will see later in the PvP part. Pretty important. Okay, now enough with PvE. We want to have a look at PvP. PvP for this whole setup is crazy, and it's a different playstyle than the stuff we had before. So where are we with that build? And is this build meta? That's a question. Let's have a deeper look into the current stuff to identify where we are. Battleground right now, I say, mostly divides into two different roles. We have the turtle, the idle sitting role, which has Shackled Fate, which has the Cleave Ancient Essence that deals additional bleed damage and pulls the enemy to you, that focuses on staying alive even longer with the Ancestor Steely. That stuff, the turtle build. On the other side, we have the demo dot, so Heartless Terror build to make you immune to any loss of control, a dot with a 6-piece banker to spread all of the enemies with the Vipers, you know, heavy damage focused builds to run around quickly. So those are the two extremes. So where are we with that? I have two builds here that I will show you after that stuff. It's the Endwinter build, means utilizing 6-piece Endwinter and getting more into the damage direction. You have the same or sometimes even more damage output than with the demo dot build. It's really bursting crazy, but it's more squishy because you can't move that freely. So you sometimes do not deliver your damage. You do not have that much dots, but the guy who's in front of you who will get hit gets a crazy burst damage. So it's on damage side. But in addition, it has some CC because we freeze and we shatter the enemies, means they are stunned, they are slowed, they are under our control. The other build is the Icy Chains. It's a combination of the turtle and the Endwinter build. It slows, chills the enemy, it freezes the enemy, but it does not shattering them. It pulls them with our Shackled Fate. We drag them out of the idol, we push them, we pull them to us, and then we freeze them with a cleave. So the idea here is more in the midst of those two builds, less damage because we have a damage multiplier less, and we having more control over the enemies and over the idol. There's a third build, a support build. It's I draw it as a mystery box. This is something that I will show you later in my next video, hopefully, because it's one of my favorite builds, and it's not connected to the icy part. It's a whole different thing. Little spoiler alert here. Okay, deeper look into those two variations. One is a 6-piece Endwinter, utilizing sprint, again with the chill, the cleave with the freeze, and the hammer with the shatter. Those three essences one important thing that you need for that build. You need the eternal sprint affixes. Otherwise, you get lost from time to time because you're totally open to any knockback or CC from the enemy. You are directly in the back line of the enemy where you want to deal your damage, and there you need something to escape. So get as much of the eternal sprint affixes for all of these builds. On the other side, the 4-piece Endwinter only with the 2-piece Baron is less controlling. It's less damage, it's more controlling, with the sprint and the cleave again to chill and freeze, and the pull from the chain spear to stand not in front of the idol on the enemy's backline, but standing more into your own backline, pulling enemies out of the idol to you and then freezing them with the cleave. Here you need less of the eternal sprint affix because you're not that open in the enemy's range. You're more on the idol or behind the idol into your team's direction. So it's a bit safer. Both of the builds work pretty good in my opinion. I think some of you already tested the combinations. It's, you need to know what you do. It's not that easy to play. It's not just run into the idol and die there. It's a bit more focused on moving wisely and pulling the right enemies. But it's a cool thing and it makes a lot of fun playing those builds. Cool. Let's check out how that looks in action. I brought you two battleground matches here that are, of course, more evenly matched. Not that as you know, we have the issue in the battleground that sometimes you go into battles that you just can't win. So I thought it would make no sense to bring you one of those. So I brought you a classic one. We won in the end, but it shows you very good how good and easily you can deliver damage with that builds. We start here with the first build, and I have the overview of that build later on for you. No issue, you will see it. We are very fast. We have the sprint. You see we can easily switch the lanes. We can easily engage the enemies. As always, I run into the enemies very early to just get all of their skills activated, so my team member does not get all of them. But we have a very, very good damage output for this build here. As always, try to get your savior. It's very, very important, and use your stance wisely because that shields are saving your ass. You see, we have the issue that we have no big immunity. I just have 1 out of 4 sprint affixes in this game, I think. And I have the Endwinter, so I farmed like crazy and tried to get full PvP valid all blue slot sets. But honestly, that's crazy. It takes a lot of time to farm all of them properly. So I have still missing 1 armor slot. So I have less armor in this games and I will die more quickly. But hey, it's just to show you that you really can deliver some damages in those games with the Endwinter and the freeze and with the whole icy combo. Okay, in this case, let's have a look into the details. I brought you a summary for that build as well, so that you can try it out yourself and don't have to search for every single detail here. We go with the Lacerate in this case, not Frenzy, because we have a lot of attack speed and Lacerate in PvP is just working better, and we have the Rending Bite to do an additional bleed here, so it's a nice damage boost for us. We go with the Sprint, Cleave and Hammer as before, and for the Sunder we take of course the Undying Rage. So what you see here is basically the same stuff as in the PvE build. The only difference is that we get Frenzy out, pushed in the Lacerate with the Rending Bite and the Flesh Splitter. That gives our Cleave an additional 30% damage when awakened. So with rank 5, this should be pretty easy now. You can get a good boost of damage for your Cleave. We have different possibilities, but I say try it out. The Harbinger, that new Paragon tree. I have later on a little video for you to take a look, but it's a very cool Paragon tree for us as Barbarians, because when we leave the battle, we get an additional shield, a damage reduction, and a extra, let's say, shield that makes us immune to the next 3 loss of control effects. So this is pretty nice because it stays active. It's not vanishing. You already for the whole time you have that shield, and you can engage again with that shield, making you immune. So this is pretty nice for this build, especially to get into the enemies pretty quick and do not get stunned and locked down like crazy. For the gems, we have again the Flash Splitter. This is pretty good because when we deal total loss of control, we have an additional damage source here. Then we have the Frozen Heart. It's nice. It's boosting again that mechanic of chilling, freezing, and thrashing. This is nice for enemies who attack us. They get frozen, and the shattering then works pretty good. We have the Void Spark because we deal a lot of damage, and having people around us get damaged by that Void Spark is pretty good. Rolling Consequence for some additional crit chance, and again another dot. Dots are good, dots are our friends. And for example, a Battle Guard. There are other gems like a Spiteful Blood or anything, but something that let you stay alive a bit longer. That would be helpful for this build. Sets 6-piece Endwinter, 2-piece Vithus to just utilize all of the Endwinter procs, and the 4/4 Eternal Sprint attribute would be really, really good to have it. So keep in mind, you should farm that if you want to play that build successfully. And for all of these builds, PvE or PvP, you should have a look at the Reforge bonuses, because now we get into a very luxury situation of permanently dealing loss of control. That is pretty nice. On the Reforges, that opens some doors. Okay, we start. What should we do? Of course, we need a beneficial effect duration. Pick it 8 times, you get a good bonus of 24%. Primary, skill, or crit damage, depending on what you play. In this case, I would advise you the crit damage, because primary in PvP, you do not hit that often, your primary hit, but on PvE, you would hit it very often. So primary is still a valid choice, but with the different loadouts, I would say go for primary on PvE and go for crit damage on PvP. You can get an overall of 32% for the primary and 20% for the crit damage. Then attack speed 8 times. Do that. It's nice. It gets on top of everything. 60% you can gain when you have it on 8 pieces. And then it comes the funny part, damage to loss of control. You can get a max of nearly 50% additional damage to loss of control. Enemies who are affected by a loss of control. So this is crazy for PvE. I think for PvP it's strived, but still it is a lot of additional damage. You can get nearly 20%, I would say, in PvP, or 18, whatever. It's pretty good. Take a look at it. And now you have 2 different possibilities. You already have 2 Vengeance Reforges. You could go for the third one. I would advise you this, to be honest, only in PvE, because there you can pick the damage to demon 8 times. You get an additional 50% damage and the vengeance bonus to anything that is a demon. Means all of the bosses are demons, the regular minions are demons, a lot of them. If you're not fighting skeletons all of the day, you're pretty good with that skill. You could pick a damage to shielded enemies for PvP as well. And you would have then the Vengeance bonus, which is active for 1 second, which could be prolonged, I think, with beneficial effects. And all of that, maybe you get 1.5, nearly 2 seconds. But in my opinion, it's worth it. It can work, but only if you are the highest razor and dealing damage to anyone anyway. If you are on a lower or mid resonance, this will not help you that much. That one second while you're maybe running away and your dot is dealing damage 10 meters behind you, and that dot then is doing twice the damage every, I don't know, 15 seconds or something, it's just not worth it. It could be in a nice moment where you're directly having a primary attack on the enemy, this vengeance thing procs, and then you have it active. Okay, this could work, but honestly, I think you have a better way when you pick stun resistance. Because if you have the sprint affix of 100% immunity to knockback, chill and everything, you are still able to get stunned. And with that stun resistance by 50%, you are nearly getting out of the mess. You are reaching a point with the sprint affixes 4 times and that stun resistance of the Reforge. You are getting to a free Heartless Terror. So think about that and compare it with the Vengeance bonus. I think that one is more valid. It's just my opinion, and maybe you have some other learnings. Share it with me if you like, and let's discuss. Okay, here I have another battle with the chain freeze, where we say we pull enemies and then do the cleave and freeze and everything. This build is dealing a bit less damage because we're missing damage bonus, but overall this is very solid if you fight from the backlines. So if you are a bit more defensive and if you want to not charge the enemy backline instantly, then this build gives you more control over the enemy. The point is, it's pretty nice to pull someone and to have him directly frozen. This is really cool. Of course, many of them are immune to a loss of control and everything. Yes, it will not work always, especially with tempers. Tempers are a big pain in the ass. But it works pretty good, because every 3 seconds you're doing that stunt. And it's nice. Even if they dance around you, they will get frozen at a certain point. And if you are moving wisely with your damage dealer behind you, they can utilize that moment and in that moment deal all of the damage very quickly. So I like this build, to be honest. It has a bit more control. Yes, we are still squishy. That's why, again, you should use the Harbinger, or you can use the Gladiator, of course, but I think Harbinger, it's just nice and it's fun to use. Let's check out what it is doing. So here we engage. We fight a bit, our life is depleting, and we retreat. So look at that. Now we have, we get that green shield. And this shield is the chosen one status that let us receive less damage, and it makes us immune to loss of control effects. So there you see I have again a shield. This is the shield I get while escaping a battle. So those two things work in parallel, and yeah, they are pretty cool if you don't have any other immunity to the loss of control effects. We go back, we heal, we wait a second, and here we have our white shield again. So when we take a look, we have the Harbinger, the chosen one. That's the point. Granting you 40% damage reduction for 2 seconds. That's pretty nice. Then we have the shield. We have the point of immunity to the next 3 loss of control. And we equip the duration so that we do not have it for just 2 seconds, but for 4 seconds. Meaning 4 seconds, 40% damage reduction. This is pretty cool. And then we take the immunity. We could take the immunity to all loss of control, but honestly I like the shield with just the 3. It's enough in this case, and instead we take the crit chance. So we have sprint active all of the time. Means over 60% movement speed. So with that skill giving us a critical hit chance for every 10% movement speed we have, we get a free 6% critical hit chance here on top for PvP content, which is very good. So in this build we could utilize the Harbinger, of course. We could go with the Gladiator as well and the Warden as well. All of them are really nice, because all of them let us stay alive even longer. In this case we used the Harbinger. You see, I just like that green shield, it looks so cool. And it's always active, so it will just vanish when we actually get the loss of control. And then it gets depleted step by step. So it's really, really nice. Okay, so how does this build work? Let's take a look at the overview. The icy chains again take the lacerate into here with the flesh splitter, and in addition we take now our shackled fate again. So our chest to pull enemies to our position. We combined it with the sprint to have chill and the frigid grin to have the freezing of the enemies, but we do not have a shatter anymore. Okay, so instead we take the Oben's Manyfinger to just give us a wider range of pulling enemies. You could go with the lifesteal of the chain spear as well, but honestly I like the Oben's more, because once you attack an enemy that is not dying from you, you're still spamming your spears into his direction, and if you have a larger field of spears, you could pull other enemies in that time as well, making it more effective. Okay, you could take the Brawler in this case. It's nice as well. You're a bit more defensive. You don't need the Harbinger, essentially, because you're not charging into enemy backline. You just want to stay alive more longer. It has a shield as well. And for the gems, it's nearly the same. You can go with the chip, the frozen heart, to utilize the freeze effect. Then we could go with the misery elixir. It's nice because we have a longer duration of negative effects on enemies. It's the same as the 2-piece Baron, which we are using here, to have again overall nearly 60% longer duration of negative effects. So our stun from the freezing will last longer, our chill will last longer, our skull mod damage increase will last longer, and any dot of course as well. So we have the rolling consequence to give that dot and increase our critical hit chance, and you could go with the Ignatius Scorn, for example. If you pull an enemy to you and then you deal that heavy damage boost, that he hopefully dies in the enemy's backline, in your backline very, very fast. 4-piece Endwinter for the whole damage improvement thing and freezing. We have the 2-piece Vithus for our durations and 2-piece Barons for the enemy's negative effect durations. In this case, you could go with the 2 of 4 Eternal Sprint attribute. It still makes you immune to 50% of the knockback. It's a good thing. But 4 of 4 is maybe not necessarily needed because you're not storming the enemy's backline. Well, that was a long video. I'm so sorry. These essences really changed the playstyle of Barbarians a lot, so I thought a deeper look was really necessary. Coming back to the questions from the beginning, is it worth your time? My personal answer is yes. It is so much fun and it opens a complete new development field for our Barb. So hopefully you're not sleeping already and maybe found something interesting for you in this video. There are other cool new things to look at. Check this out. Thorns. Crazy and very, very effective to kill enemy and enemy damage dealers. And of course, my mystery build. I think all of you already know what it is and already playing it. But that's all for the next time. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, feel free to leave a like and subscribe to get more content like this. See you all again, my friends.